Hello and welcome back to the Curiosity Chronicles. Today, I'm going to tell you all about my trip to Ottawa. It was a really interesting day, to say the least. And I'll just start at the beginning. A couple weeks ago, we were invited to our MP's Christmas social event. And so we all went, my family went, and we met another MP who came as a guest, and there were loads of people in our community. Like, the room was full, and it was pretty awesome. There was tons of food. There were gifts as we were leaving. We all got a beautiful box of shortbread that is made actually locally, so within our MP's riding, which was very nice, shop local and all that jazz. And it was just a great evening of connection with like-minded people and people with the same values and things like that. So it was a really cool night. It was very relaxed, a lot of laughs. And what was really neat was that both of the MPs who were there took the time with anybody who wanted to ask them questions one-on-one, but then also too, after the speeches, they also took questions from all the guests who were there. So we got to learn an awful lot that night. It was really neat. We got to learn, sort of how things work, why things are the way they are. People were asking really neat questions. Yes, I'm wearing one of my Christmas sweaters. And so it was just a really nice night. So many people were saying what a great job our MP's team did putting it on, hosting it, arranging everything, even just down to like the little decorations on the tables. It was just a really nice night. In the process of the question and answer period, I asked, on behalf of my son, who's 16, what advice they would have, the two MPs would have, for a teenager who's been raised with similar values that they represent, and like who has his eyes on politics, who's interested in politics. My son is on school council. He's looking at municipal council when he's old enough, and and beyond. Really, he's when we were in Ottawa yesterday, he was like, I'll live here someday. So yeah, it was really neat. The advice that he was given is get involved, volunteer, help on campaigns, yada. And then what he was also told is come to Ottawa, visit the parliament, get to see it, get to see how it all works. And so I was like, oh, well, that was kind of interesting. So afterwards, when I was talking to our MP's assistant, and there's actually two, because there's different levels, because there's a riding office, and then there's like his own office, and then his office in Ottawa. So there's a few different people that we connect with when we need to speak with him or convey messages. So I was talking to his assistant, and this is his assistant who is also in Ottawa with him. And I said, oh, like, how can my son volunteer in the office? Like, I'm sure he would love that. And they were like, we got to wait for an election to sort of do that, because there's a lot of confidentiality issues and stuff. So we just can't have people show up and, stuff envelopes and things like that. But when there's an election, absolutely. So I was like, great, good to know. And then his assistant, who's up in Ottawa with him, said, well, why don't you come to Ottawa? Like, like, we can make that happen. Not just, you don't have to figure it out on your own. We can make it happen. And so she gave me her email and told me to get in touch with her. So the next morning I sent her an email, because I knew this event was at the end of November, and it's now the 11th of December today. I don't even know what day it is. Because we were in Ottawa yesterday, I'm exhausted today. I'm literally brain fried right now. And I am emotionally, mentally, physically exhausted at the moment. So like, if you ask me what day it is, I don't know. It's the 11th of December. So I knew that we just had a few weeks that we could make this happen, because they're going to break for the Christmas holidays and not be back until January. And so I wanted to make sure that we were able to get to Ottawa before Christmas, because I don't really want to drive to Ottawa in January, February, when Like it's Canada, and in Ontario the weather is, they can be telling you it's a beautiful sunny winter day and it's a blizzard. You just never know what you're going to get. So I wanted to get this done before the holidays. So our MP's assistant was amazing. She told us what would be a really good day to come. So we're like, great, we'll do that. I got my kid out of school. She made all the arrangements for us, sent me an email with all the instructions that I would need, like where to go, what I need to do, what I need to bring, what's going to happen when I get there. Like, this is the kind of information I need. I'm a recon person. So if I go to something, I tend to arrive an hour early, check things out, figure out everything. And then I feel like, okay, now I feel confident walking in. So that was awesome. This amazing amount of information she gave me. Whenever I'm given an email like that or sent an email like that, I don't just leave it in my emails so that I can find it later on my phone. I actually print it and then put it in my bag. And that's what I did. I took that email and I printed it, put it in my purse, so I would have it when we actually got to the Parliament buildings. Okay, so 8:15, we leave our house for the 3.5-hour drive to Ottawa. 30 minutes into this drive, there's a dump truck in front of me, and a huge piece of ice flew off the top of the dump truck, smashed into my windshield, and shattered my windshield. Fortunately, and it happened so fast, I didn't even have time to react. Like, I literally was like, oh my God, what just happened? Fortunately, the bulk of the damage was on the passenger side. Sorry to my son, who happened to be sitting there, and it came like right at his face. But we'll deal with his trauma later. Just kidding. Just kidding. He's okay. He's okay. But his side, like if that damage had been done on the driver's side, I wouldn't have been able to continue. That would have been the end of our trip to Ottawa. But it was mostly on his side, so there was still, I could still see enough to drive to Ottawa. But of course, we're very shaken up. It was scary. And I think, like, deep down, that realization, this could have been so much worse. Like, I'm doing highway speeds and a piece of ice flying back at me at highway speeds in the windshield. This is a morning that could have ended very differently. So thank goodness it did not. It's not our time. We kept going. So we were very shaken up. It took me a couple minutes to kind of pull myself back together as I'm driving, of course, highway speeds. And then I start, my logical brain starts to kick in. My Gen Xer mind starts to take over and it's like, we've been through hell. We can do this. So I found the truck again. I had sort of passed the truck, and then I was like, no, we need the license plate of this truck. So we slowed down a bit. My son took a photo of the license plate. So we're like, okay, great. We have an actual legal record of this truck. So then I'm like, okay, what do I do? I call the OPP. If anybody is watching this from outside of Ontario, the 401, we're on the 401. That is like the big major highway that goes the whole way across the country. And it's 100 kilometers an hour, and some places 110. And then the OPP is our Ontario Provincial Police. They police the highways and rural areas and things, whatever municipalities have contracted them, they book that. They take after that. Oh my God. See, that's what I'm saying. My brain is fried. They look after that. So because we were on the 401, I called the OPP. We just called the non-emergency line. And simply because I just needed to know what to do. Like, I literally was like, I don't actually know what to do right now. So I get somebody on the phone. He takes a bunch of information and he said, I'm going to pass this on to a police officer. They're going to call you. I'm like, okay, great. So I got this amazing, awesome police officer who was so cool, so awesome. She really helped calm me down because she's asking me questions and I'm like, okay, I'm still kind of freaking out a little bit. And she was so patient with me as she's like, okay, I need your insurance number. I'm like, I'm driving. And she's like, no problem. She said, you can call me when you get to Ottawa, because I had made the decision that we were going to keep going to Ottawa, and I would figure it out along the way. I had 3 more hours of driving to figure out how to solve this problem. And so she told me that when this happens, they actually consider it a motor vehicle collision. And so they actually do a police report that goes to the insurance, yada, yada, yada. They were super excited and super happy that we had the license plate number and a description of the truck. So it wasn't like a pickup truck. It was like a big dump truck, like a construction vehicle almost. It would have belonged to a fleet. And so all they needed to do was look up the plate, find out which company owns the plate, find out what driver was driving that day, and find out who was at fault for not clearing the ice, like big chunks of ice off the top of the truck. So that's the first 30 minutes of driving to Ottawa. Good times, good times. And so we deal with the police, and then the police officer texts me her phone number so that when I get to Ottawa, I can send her photos of the car, of the windshield and everything, and my ID, like my driver's license, my insurance card, so I can provide her everything and keep her up to date on what's going on with my car. I'm like, okay, great, thank you. I'll talk to you when we get to Ottawa. So then I think, okay, there's got to be an auto glass place that has same-day service. There has to be. I don't know. It was like the luckiest, unluckiest day completely. It was crazy. So I tell my son, I give my son my phone. He's 16. He's very capable. And I said, see if you can look up like Speedy Auto Glass or something in Ottawa. So he does that. He finds me a place. It's not Speedy. It's Uniglass or something. I give them a call. And I just explained the situation. And I said, what I'm wondering is there any way you could replace my windshield today, like this afternoon? And while I'm in Ottawa, I said, because I have to come home tonight, and I can't do that on this shattered windshield. It was intact. It was just all like cracked and shattered. I'll post a photo. And so the guy says, yeah, I have an opening at 12. You can take that. What kind of car do you have? So I tell him the make and model and year of my car. And he's like, yep, I have a windshield in stock. I'll take it. I'll take it. You know what I mean? I was literally like, I don't even have to think about this. I'm just going to take it. Because at this point I knew, I'd also already called my husband as well. Who's like, turn around, you can't do this. And I'm like, I regret telling you this. I'm like that person who I wait for my husband to go to work and then do all the things I know he would get upset about. So it's not like awful stuff. It's just the thing, you know what I mean? When he's like, you have to put everything in the recycling, and I'm like, right into the garbage out the door, and he can't cry about it. And I don't do that all the time, but sometimes he's just like in a rush and I don't have the patience for it. So anyway, I was like, I regret telling you this now, if you're going to be like this. Like, what I need is just for some help with insurance. Like, I just need to know what to do. Anyway, he calls the insurance company, and he's telling me that it's insurance will cover it. There'll be no deductible. There'll be no charge, yada, yada. And especially with a police report to go with it, it's going to be like not my fault. So anyway, guy in Ottawa texts me the address to bring my car to, and we make it. We get there. Everybody's like super nice. They take my car like right away, and he says it'll be done in an hour. And I said, I can't wait because we have a meeting. We have to go to Parliament Hill and we have to be there. So by the time he would have had my car finished, it would have been too late for us to get in my car to Parliament and get there on time. Not a big deal to take a taxi. So that's what we did. And I said, I'm just going to leave my car, go to my meeting in Parliament, and then I'll come back. And they're like, what time do you think you'll be back? And I said, I don't actually know, but like, what time do you close? And they said like 5 o'clock. And I said, okay, I should be able to get here for 5. And he's like, it's okay. You know how to contact us. Keep in touch. If you're going to be a bit late, like we can wait for you. It's no big deal. And also too, they didn't ask for any money up front. So I knew that they weren't going to let me go. And most people have 2 keys to their car. Okay. So we were on a big time honor system here that they had my car, and my car was out on the street. When I got back that night, my car was out on the street, and I could have used my other key to start my car and go, right? So these guys trusted me. I trusted them. Everybody was happy in the end. They also called me a taxi to get up to Parliament Hill. Super appreciate that, because I'm in a city where I don't know anything, and now I had to start Googling and finding things. I tried Uber. It was brutal. It was a brutal experience, because when I'm looking at the thing and it says, oh, there's a driver 3 minutes from you. Would you like this driver? And I'm like, yes, let's take that driver. And then when I book it, it's like, oh, we're searching for a driver. And I'm like, wait a minute. You just said there was a driver 3 minutes from me. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't really understand this whole Uber thing. I've never used it. I just tested it out in Ottawa trying to get around. I don't know that I would use it again. So anyway, there's that. So we get to Parliament Hill, and of course then we're like, we don't really know where to go. I had the instructions, so I knew what entrance I needed to get into. So I'm just asking. The great news about going to our nation's capital is that there are staff and parliamentary police everywhere. Like every 10 feet, there's an armed police officer there. So, so the first guy we see, I asked, how do we get to, you have to go to the visitors center. So I said, how do I get to the visitors center? So he points me in the right direction, tells me where to go. So then as you're going along, it's all fence. And then there's like little entrances with steps up to the buildings. And so I see a couple armed guards, and they've got like military weaponry with them, which I felt very safe. I felt so safe. But it's kind of a weird experience when you're not used to having so many armed police and armed guards around you. And I know, like in my own town, if I go to the cafe for a little coffee and there's a cop sitting next to me, he's armed, but this is a whole other vibe, right? Like he doesn't feel like he's under threat sitting, eating a sandwich in the cafe, the way that, our government is under threat, like all the time. Every nation's government is under threat. There's always a threat. And things happen all the time, as we found out. So we get there, and so I see these 2 guys, and then I'm like, we're just trying to get to the visitor center. And they're like, oh, you got to go to the next one. And so we go to the visitor center. We're super early, but we're early because I'm doing recon, right? So the woman at the door, I said, yeah, we're here for this. And I know we're early, just want to know what to do. And so she explains the whole process, and she's like, if you come back at 1 o'clock, we'll get you through, and then you can meet your MP inside. I'm like, great, thank you. So my son and I toddle off. We take photos around. It was very foggy, so you couldn't really get good pictures of the Parliament buildings. But the Eternal Flame was there. We had some pictures, and we just sort of hung around and talked, and like just observing, talking about what we were seeing and the things that were going on. There's a huge construction project that's, I think they said, is like 10 to 15 years it's going to be. So there's a lot going on there. So we wander around, and then we go back and we get taken through security. And that was an experience in itself as well. And this is like, I kid you not, this is just the first part of the day. And so we go through security, and they want like my watch. I didn't have my smartwatch on. I had my little tank watch on. And so they wanted my watch, purses. You have to put everything. And then you go through a thing. I didn't beep the big thing like they have at the airport. That's like this big arch thing that you walk through. I didn't set it off, so I didn't have to get searched. My son didn't set it off, so he didn't have to get searched. But they searched my purse, and she pulled out my power bank, which I was like, oh, is that what got flagged? And she said, yes. And she held up my selfie stick, my pink selfie stick, the one that my phone is on right now. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, you can keep your power bank, but I have to keep your selfie stick. And I was like, okay, do I get it back? And she said, oh yeah. And so she showed me, she had a bag that she put it in, zipped it up, and it hangs up. And then she gave me a ticket. And then the ticket matches the bag. And so she said, when you're finished for the day and you're exiting the building, because it's all like almost like a maze, there's really kind of only one way to get places. And so she said, just hand in your ticket and you'll get your selfie stick back as you're exiting the building. I'm like, okay, great, thanks. I wasn't planning on using it, and people are like, why do you have a selfie stick in your, because I'm a girl and I'm a content creator. So of course I have a selfie stick with me all the time. You just never know when you might need to record a video. And I do have other channels besides this one. So yes, I do that quite often. And so we get through that first part. So we grab our stuff, we go to the next window, which is 2 armed guards, and they are checking our IDs. So you have to be on the list to get in. And this is really important. And this is more to the story later, but you have to be on the list to get in. So if you want to sit in the gallery and watch question period and have a tour of the parliament and things like that, you have to be there under the invitation of an MP or somebody in the government. You can't just show up and say, I'd like to watch the government. Every single person that comes in to that room, that part especially, you have to be there connected to an MP. So my invitation was issued through my MP's office, and so that's who I was connected to. So all of this is recorded. They know exactly who each visitor is connected to in that room and in that building. That's important. That's going to come up later in this conversation. So they were trying to call my MP's office just to confirm and let them know, hey, your visitor's here. We're confirming that this, extra layers of security. So even though I was on the list, showed my ID, my son showed his ID, they still called my MP to confirm all of this and let him know that we were there. So they said to me, the problem we're having is that the building that your MP and his staff are in right now is actually being evacuated. That sounds dramatic. So it really was being evacuated. Apparently, the reports this morning that I saw are that there was a suspicious package. And so they evacuated the building. This is what I'm saying. Governments are always under attack. It doesn't matter where you are. Canada's not as peaceful as it was 5 years ago, but certainly we're still a pretty peaceful place. So even Canada has this kind of thing happen. So remember I have that email printed in my purse? My MP's assistant gave me her cell phone number in that email. So I was like, oh, no worries. And I pull out this piece of paper and I said, here's his assistant's phone number, her cell phone number. Try calling her. The guys were like, awesome. So they did. They called her. They approved everything. They gave us our ID that we wear. It's like a little pass that gets us through certain doors, through past certain levels of security and things like that. Obviously, to get into certain places, you have to be with someone in the government or on staff who has a card that they put on the scanner and it opens the door. But we could get a certain distance with just these passes that they gave us. Super cool. So we get through all that. Then we go down, we meet, one of the assistants came to get us. It was supposed to be our MP, but because of all the craziness with the evacuation, he was kind of in one part of the building. So she quickly came and got us and whisked us over to where he was waiting for us. And then we got a tour of some of the gallery, like the portrait gallery. So we got to see portraits of former prime ministers, which was really neat. And we also learned that every prime minister gets to choose the artist that paints their portrait and what their portrait looks like. So what they wear, the colors, the tone, the depth, all of it, they get to choose. And you can see their personal styles through all of it. Fun fact, all of them have sort of darker backgrounds, except for Jean Chrétien, whose background was yellow, bright yellow. So that was fun. And so then we had our tour, and it was really cool because there's MPs all over the place. People that I recognize from watching them on the live stream. I do watch the question period and statements and votes and stuff like that on the live stream. And our MP told us that the Canada, I believe, was the first nation in the world to broadcast the government on TV. And now with the internet, it's broadcast on the internet as well. So that's kind of cool. And I think I remember as a child, there was like the channel where you could watch question period and the government and everything like that, like live in action. So that was cool. And then we got to see where they actually hold question period now, which is not in its traditional place because they're doing a 10 to 15 year renovation, as I said. And they had to find a place to do this. So they literally built a building within a building. So the big, huge Parliament building, there's a courtyard, and then they built a building in there to hold the gallery and all of the chairs. So when you watch it on TV or online, all the green carpet, the green chairs, the speakers, like it's all there. Like we were right there. The door they walk in, we were standing right there. Like literally it's two big glass doors. And we were like watching, and there's the speaker and there's MPs, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is like so wild. And so we walked around and met a whole bunch of MPs. A lot of them I recognize from watching the live stream every day. And everybody was very warm and welcoming and super excited that like a 16-year-old boy is there in his blazer and tie, and he's, you know, interested in what's going on. He was really, really into it. He doesn't really know who a lot of people are because it's all done by the time he gets home from school. So he doesn't sort of get to see the whole process every single day the way I do. And I still have this cold. So we get our tour. The our MP had to go to his seat. His assistant or one of his assistants takes us up to the gallery, shows us where to be, where to sit, and off we go. It was cool. And so then we watch question period. The prime minister was there, the leader of the opposition, the NDP leader, the Green leader, everybody was there. There was all kinds of stuff going on. And I think we stayed for 2 hours and watched some votes and watched all the arguing and bickering and debating back and forth. And, you know, everybody just wants to know when Chrystia Freeland's going to say what the deficit is. So, but she won't until Monday. And they're like, just tell us the number. Like, just tell us. But I don't know if she knows. So maybe that's why she's not saying anything. And then we left. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Let's go back to every single person there has to be connected to an MP. Yeah. So in the middle of all of this man on the other side, because here's the thing. It's kind of like an arena where you have like what's going on down on the floor, but then there's up high, there's seats all the way around. So you're looking down at it. So it's open air across. And I'm looking across at this group of people, and this man stands up and he starts yelling that homelessness is a national crisis, and just going on and on and on and on and on. He's not wrong, but he was just going on and on and on and on and on. And you're not supposed to do that. Listen, I clapped for something an MP said, and a police officer came and said, no clapping. And and I saw the Speaker of the House look at me, and I was like, just cheering for my oh, I was just cheering for my team. So anyway, this man stands up, he's yelling, and it was interesting how slow the police officer moved. So he just kind of like sauntered over like, yeah, just another day on the hill, right? So he's trying to get this guy to come on, let's go. And he's like, no. And like, you know, if you know Saturday Night Live, the character Stuart, was it Stuart? Or was that in Living Color? Maybe it was in Living Color. Anyway, the character Stuart. And he's like, no, don't touch me, right? So and eventually they're like, come on, and they grab him and they get him out, and he's yelling the whole way out and everything. 2 minutes later, an NDP MP stands up and starts saying, as we saw in the gallery, the homelessness situation in Canada. And so then, of course, the opposition is like, no, you can't say that. And the speaker stands up and he said, we are not allowed to speak to things that go on in the gallery when we're asking questions and making statements. Please rephrase your question. So she tries again, and then everybody starts yelling, and the speaker stands up again and says, you're still referring to something that went on in the gallery. I'm going to give you one more opportunity. So it took her a minute, and she had to come up with a way. And she said, as we saw in Ottawa. It's like, oh, come on. Anyway, so she did it, you know, listen, they're not wrong that this is a major crisis in our country right now. But it looked like a setup. I'm watching this unfold and I'm thinking to myself, who invited this guy? He's here because an MP invited him to be here. And when I say invited, it's not like reached out, called you at home and said, hey, I'd love for you to come to Ottawa. But if you contact your MP's office and ask if you can come to Ottawa and get gallery seats for question period, et cetera, that would be considered, and your MP's office says yes, and they book that for you, that would be considered your invitation. Okay, so every single person is connected to an MP. So all the people in the gallery, with the exception of the media, who have special passes, but every single person there is there connected to an MP. So Andrew Scheer, who is in the Conservative government, he raises his hand on a point of order, and he said, this person who was yelling in the gallery has to be here under the name of an MP. Who was it? And was it that MP? And was it a setup? It looks contrived. It looks like this was done on purpose and not just a random moment, because the fact that she had a prepared question ready moments after this happened, it's obvious that she's like, you come here, do this, and then I'm immediately going to ask my question. As an MP, she should know not to address things in the gallery, but whatever. She shot her shot, right? Anyway, so that's why everybody has to be there under the name of a government official. So, you know, it could be like, it doesn't necessarily, I think, need to be an MP. It could be, you know, somebody else's, a senator's office or something like that might have booked you in for a tour and a couple of seats. So that's that. At 4:00, we head out. I get my selfie stick back, thank goodness, and we figured we'll get a taxi back to this auto shop. I did not know how hard it would be to get a taxi in Ottawa. Apparently, there are 1,000 taxis in Ottawa. 1,000. Yeah. 30 minutes it took to get a taxi. I tried the Uber thing, wasn't working. So I said to my son, we got to start walking. So fortunately, we were wearing flat shoes, like I had boots and he had his running shoes. So we just start walking. And then we see a bus and I'm like, let's try the bus. So I asked the bus driver, we need to go down Bank Street. Are you going that way? And he said, no, I'm turning. But he told me which bus I needed. I'm like, great, thank you. That was helpful. Because in Toronto, a bus driver would just say no. In Ottawa, they help you. In Ottawa, they say no. But if you get on this numbered bus, you'll be going in the right direction. I'm like, okay, great. We're just going to stand here and wait for that bus. I've texted the guys at the auto shop to tell them that we're really trying hard to get there. Just please be patient. And then all of a sudden I saw a taxi across the street. So I go running across the street. I'm like, taxi. So I said, we need to go down Bank Street. You know, can you take us? He's like, absolutely, jump in. And he gets us there at 2 minutes after 5. The place was closing at 5, even though they did promise me they would wait for me, which I believed they would have. And I did tell them, like, it's not looking like I'm going to be there till at least 5:15. This taxi driver found little routes and actually got us there 10 minutes faster than Google said we would. Thank you. Thank you. That's my kind of driving. I get my car, new windshield, everything's fine. We can now decompress and eat snacks in the car and drive home. All I wanted was a coffee. And usually when I'm out in the world and I don't have my own coffee, I go to the Scottish place, you know, Mickey D's. And I drove for 3.5 hours, did not pass a single Mickey D's. It was kind of shocking to me. I was kind of shocked. When we got down to the highway, to the 401, so you have to go south from Ottawa down to the 401, and then we've got about 2.5 hour drive on the 401 from there. There's en routes, and every single en route that we passed had a Starbucks, except the Starbucks were closed. They close at like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. I was just like, oh my God. So it's pouring rain. We've had a really stressful drive that morning. I was so happy to get home. We got home in exactly 3.5 hours, even in that crazy pouring rain. And today now I am exhausted, absolutely shattered. And I've got to go to the community dinner in a couple of hours, got to get my son to his piano lesson. No, not piano today, guitar today. Yes, my son is a musician. We go to a lot of music lessons. So there's that. So that's the story of my trip to Ottawa. I hope that helps. If anybody is ever, if you're Canadian and you're thinking about going to Ottawa, I hope that helps. If you want to do that and you need a little bit of help, just reach out to me. Just let me know and we'll get in touch and I'll point you in the right direction of actually getting into Parliament and being able to see the question period and everything else. And if you just want to go and hang out in Ottawa, you can totally do that. But you do need to go through extra steps in order to, participate in Canadian democracy as a constituent, as a Canadian, as a resident of Canada. We're all entitled to this. So don't feel like you have to be special to do that. No, I just asked. And because I am friendly with our MP's team, they know me from different events and things like that. It was easy. There was no shock to them. Like, who are you? Right? They're like, of course, we'll get you in. So definitely you do have the right to request a visit. You do have the right to ask if you can and go there. You are Canadian. This is not meant to take place behind closed doors that we're not allowed to see. Like I said, Canada is, I believe, the first country in the world to broadcast live their government in action. So that's definitely something I encourage you to do if you can. If you live in Ontario and you can do the drive, I wouldn't do it in the winter. Don't be crazy like me, but do it in the summer. Don't do it while they're not there. If you're interested in politics and you're interested in how this all works, like I am, go when they're in session so that you can actually get watch from the gallery and everything. Otherwise, if they're home in their ridings, then you have to go to their ridings. And what's cool about it, when they're home in their ridings, they're not just sitting around, eating bonbons on the couch and watching soap operas. They're actually hosting events. They're going to things. They're taking part in their community. They're connecting with their communities. So it's super cool. Anyway. I always said I was going to keep my videos here under 10 minutes. We're into 40 minutes now, but you've got the whole story of how to go to Ottawa. Don't get your windshield smashed. Make sure you know taxi numbers. Make sure your Uber works. You pre-book your Uber if you need an Uber. and have everything ready to go. Call your local MP and ask if you can come visit them in Ottawa. Have a great day.